Well, hello, everybody, and welcome on to the Pixel Classroom podcast. Those join us on the live stream here versus the audio. We had some technical difficulties because, as my guest and I talk about, when technology is great, it just works great, and other times it just does not want to work correctly. But luckily, I'm here and ready to go here. So, as you know, I am, of course, your host, Ryan Reed, the Pixel Classroom podcast here, K through 12 CTE teacher, as well as robotics and technology teacher, and the host of this show for some reason for 6 years. You guys seem to love doing it. Wow, we got 8 people watching tonight. So apparently they were really excited about my guest here on the live stream who's right below us. So I'll go ahead and pop us in right there too. So this guest here, you might have seen him here, but he is the co-founder of Loper, which is a free mobile app designed for help students explore and discover their education opportunities after high school. We'll actually be talking about that a little bit too. It's led thing, but his college friends, of course, and his co-founder Eric, and he's been, of course, spending long nights discussing their shared passion of education. And right now, forward for 2 years here since they launched Loper, it has now helped over 200,000 students best fit for their high school too. I do know my former school used Loper as well too. After I left them too, I definitely have to get in touch with old Mr. Legal and see how he's doing that. But I'd like to welcome the one and only Sam Bernstein here to the Pixel Classroom. Sam, thank you for joining us tonight, despite our little technical snafus tonight.
No, it wouldn't be a podcast without a technical snafu or two. Ryan, thanks so much for having me. Really
No
excited to be
problem.
on.
So, Sam, how did you get started all this, and what kind of led to Loper here coming to board? Like I said, you kind of like did this, then you're like, hey, we're gonna quit our jobs. We're gonna help this with high school students because it is true. We have a lot of high school students. Some like, okay, I'm going to college. Okay, maybe I'm going to trade school, or I don't know what I'm doing. And this has really kind of helped a lot of them with those processes as they get towards the end of their high school careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and I'll loop my co-founder Eric into this. I think on one side, we both very lucky to grow up in families who always emphasize the value of their education. And my parents, I remember them. We actually met first day of freshman year, and both of us came with parents who were kind of parting words of like, "This is the greatest gift that we're going to give you, the value of our education." So something always in the back of our minds. And then I think like quite a few companies, born out of the pandemic, where at the time we're both Georgetown grads, class of
Mm,
2018, and I like to tease ourselves like the Georgetown grads. I went and worked in finance, you worked in management consulting, where they seem to be very good about pushing their alums in that direction, and great careers. But you know living in New York City in March of 2020, all my friends leave, and you kind of take a step back, and I think you had a lot of questions come to the forefront. First, you have such a bright spotlight on inequality right in front of you in a visceral way, where you just can't escape it. You walk outside your door, it's 14th Street's empty, Times Square is empty in New York,
yeah.
really, really eerie feeling. But then you have, outside of that, conversations that come to the forefront around what's the value of higher education. I think when you took students outside of the classroom, it really started to question, okay, well, what is the value of college? What's the future of higher education? And on the flip side, my co-founders actually at the time working on a case with KIPP St. Louis, one of the districts within their charter network, which really quickly turned into a pandemic readiness case. And you just saw, even in what is such a well-resourced charter network, the challenges that are facing
Mhm.
students. And where those two pieces came together for us is for all the issues with higher ed, and there are plenty, and I won't pretend that Loper is going to fix every single one of those, not even
Right.
close. But it's the single best way to increase your earnings potential and promote social mobility is to further your education beyond high school. And we look at it as it's just too hard for students today. There's not enough counselors. Bless our counselors out there. They are dealing with a lot, 425 to 1 national student counselor ratio. Then we actually looked at what students are using, and it was this light bulb moment of, oh my gosh, this same exact technology, software processes that we had more than a decade ago when we went through it ourselves. And as we dove into this problem on long nights, a lot of brainstorming while we were still at our jobs, what we realized is on that flip side for higher ed, it's so difficult for them to reach the right student. And they have, I think, a really challenging time telling authentic stories to students that really are personalized to an individual's interests. And we really look at it as a marketplace problem where so tough for students, but it's not that they don't want to hear from colleges, they want to hear from higher ed opportunities, but they want content that's relevant for them, and they want it in a format that's familiar to them. And that's really the motivation of Loper. We think we're the most engaging post-secondary search product, as we like to speak more broadly, and it's been a really exciting point for us in this past year of really starting to expand beyond just that high school to 4-year transition and think post-secondary, think career, and think more broadly there.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point too. I remember my art teacher, one thing she said, she started in just after the pandemic herself for college when she went to school. And she went like me, Northern Illinois. She was local and everything. But she said herself it was very hard to get in it. She said if it wouldn't have been for two of her other siblings, because she was the youngest of five children, but they said they told a lot of good things about the programs at Northern, which is what led her doing. She always had a passion for art and design. She looked at graphic design, similar to my own mother. But she said herself that it was like if it was not for them, she probably would have never gone to Northern. But she doesn't know if she wouldn't have been hearing the stories from some of their peers and alum where she would have really known about that, which is kind of a good thing here too when they actually talk about that. Because I mean, one thing about social media is sometimes it can be both a good thing and a bad thing. You get the story, you get the front, but sometimes some people have very biased views, and then there's people who just want to know, like, no, tell me a story. Why should I like this college, or why should I go to this trade school? Even more, please tell me why I should not go to it, which I think
Yes.
is a problem in everything. I mean, Loper seems to have more, and I did my little research this week here between my crazy schedules I told you beforehand. But yeah, it's like yeah, this seems to be a very more personal piece here, almost like a little micro blog, and that can work with Loper with people looking towards these various colleges. Whether it's like I said right here on the preview here, Butler and Syracuse, which two old high school friends of mine actually went to play basketball for. So if they're listening, Serge and Elvira, here we go. I got your alums right.
Pretty good basketball players if they're playing there, I must admit. If they know anyone who can help out Georgetown's basketball team, point them in that direction.
I know it's funny. We were just talking about March Madness the other day, and I was doing some things with my students with our shapegram, which was a basketball. And they pick your team, but we were joking. Some of my teachers saw it and I said, "Oh, why did you pick that team? They're so off my bracket. It's not even fun."
Oh, the
Oh
fun
man,
is
you gotta
fun
love
is
you gotta love
March.
it when real life like just kind of goes into that and everything else too. It's just kind of fun things too.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's and then part of the thing. So like so how would somebody do it if they go over here and do the app? Because like I said, it's available on the main all the main stores here and do it. And as you can see, I can see you can download app, and I see there's a for students section, a parents, and as you said, the counselor seems to be a really interesting section, as you say, because a lot of counselors always have those issues as well.
They are, yeah, and we've got our counselor. We're going to be relaunching our counselor landing page in the next week or so, which we're excited about. I mean, the first thing is we always tell people, no matter who you are, if you're curious, just go download the app. It's totally free, free for students, free for counselors to use with students, free if you're a parent and want to use it with students. Really important for us. And so that's always the first jumping points. Go check out, go download the app. In terms of how it's going to work, it starts the chat-based style onboarding, and that's where we capture those high-level preferences on students. We want to figure out who you are and where you are in your educational search process. It's those data points that can help us personalize and the content that you're going to see in your feed. And as you're interacting on prompts in your feed, what those data points do is power our matching algorithm. So the core of that in-app experience is receiving best fit recommendations for after high
Mm.
school. And what we're really excited and think we're doing in a different way is actually then taking those data points, not just powering that algorithm, but actually showing students, hey, here's why we think it's a good fit. And Ryan, I love that you bring up that point of why is something not a good fit. I actually think that's an area that we can continue to expand on because there are so many misconceptions. And I'll focus here more on four-year college right now, but I think it extends outward other post-secondary pathways of, hey, this school, because I've heard of it, because it's a big brand name, because I'm going to pick on our ranking sites here, but because it's ranked 44th on a list out of national colleges, that it must be good. It must be good for me. That's just so not true. And I love the anecdote that you had from your art teacher and finding Northern, because that's where we're trying to uncover and helping students understand, depending on your interests, looking at, I'd say not even depending, but because of your interests, those quote unquote objective lists that are just general and showing you generic content, they're not going to actually reflect what's going to be that best experience for you. And then unfortunately, you're going to be left as a student really trying to figure out, okay, is this a good fit for me and learn more about the school? And where we just see students fall down time after time is just saying, I'm going to apply to somewhere because my friends went there, because I've heard of this school and so on. And that's what we want to move away from. So, that's kind of at the high level. But then in terms of counselors using the app, definitely would recommend signing up on our website, subscribing to our newsletter. We'll follow up with more information. We have activities and resources for introducing Loper both inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. Very aware that probably a good thing with so many schools going phones free in class. But I'd say as a mobile app, sometimes you're like, man, can we get a 10-minute exception in there? So it depends on the school. But for a counselor, that big value prop here is instead of that first conversation with a student where it's almost deer in the headlights of, well, Ryan, what are you interested in? Have you thought about
Mhm.
college? And it can be pulling teeth from students. You actually have a common playing field to start with. And we want our app to be extremely accessible for someone who, comes in and thinks they know what the right college is for them, or for someone who's sitting there saying, I'm the first one in my family to attend college, I have nowhere to start. And if we can have our counselors empowered with students coming to them with some type of exploration done, baseline set of interest, baseline list as a starting point, that 30 minutes, which in too many cases all you get with a student, you're really able to maximize and let your expertise take over.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a really good idea to let in that too. I know several years ago there was one that was similar to where they had a website app where they talk about people for scholarships, and it was true. There was about $3 billion. I mean, it was even on a Shark Tank episode. $3 billion, get that. And I was teaching consumer ed, which I know, like I said, we were talking here, and I'm about to do a class later. I'm gonna get to up there, but there's so much free money, but there's also a lot of people don't know where to start with those too. And I mean,
Yeah.
it is. I mean, some people will get to college and say, well, I'm interested in this. Well, that's great. Do you want to go this way? Or do you want to go get this way? Well, I don't know. I've never thought about that. And sometimes it isn't a bad thing. Like I said, I went back for my master's. I had my technology, but they were talking about teacher. But I said, well, is there a thing for that? Like, yes, there's an instructional technology. And by then, one-to-one programs, even though one-to-one programs have been really going on since the mid '90s. Granted, it was desktop computers, mind you, in labs. It was still a one-to-one program, but you saw more of that. So I kind of like got in there too. But I was also trained under an instructional coach. And back then I was like, what is an instructional coach? And she's like, oh, yeah, it's a good point. Now people will say, oh, you want to go to education? Do you want to be an English teacher? Yeah, I would like that. Where do you want to go after that? Like, what do you mean? It's like, well, do you want to then later pursue for your master's, keep a certificate? Do you think you might go into admin, becoming a principal or a division leader? Do you want to be an instructional coach where you help the other teachers develop plans with the principals? And sometimes they're like, I don't know. And, they don't get a lot of that. And sometimes the counselors do help. And then some people don't know what a trajectory. Some might be like, you can get your undergraduate here. I mean, not a shout out to NIU. All my degrees are from there, but that's where I found the most luck with.
Yeah. No, I mean, Ryan, we might need to get you. It's almost like you're voicing over what's happening in the background of our app or what we want to have happen in that background. It's that type of introspection and back and forth where, I mean, gosh, you know, you are, I'm going to say, more outgoing than your typical teen and forward in having that out loud conversation. But it's like those type of thinking and starting to pull through that, that thought process that we want to start drawing out of students, because you start to have those conversations, and even in this weird way, I think that you have a generation, and I'm going to loop myself in there too, that in many cases is more comfortable interacting with a phone screen or a computer screen than a human being for that starting point. It's not that they don't want to talk to a human. It's like humans aren't valuable. I always say, like, the thought that Loper, or even abstracting away from Loper, that a resource is going to replace a counselor's job is crazy to me, because you
No,
need that, you need that high touch interaction at some point. And better yet, people are going to trust that high touch interaction. There's something that's so comforting about being able to have that conversation. But the thing that sucks more than anything else is when you're put on the spot and you're forced to have that conversation. And again, you don't even know where to start because it feels so overwhelming. And I think that's what, in a time where it feels like the college process gets crazier and crazier, that's where I think students are sitting here, where it's just like, I don't even know where to start with this.
yeah, and I mean that's a good thing. I mean, one of my things here, I'm right now in my district with AI, and it's a larger thing, but they're saying this, and yes, I've seen some AI used in some very inappropriate things, both real world and so forth, and even political wise. But there is something like it's a tool. I'm like, I always think of like Star Trek, where they would ask the computer to do something for them, and it worked as a tool. They still had to steer the
Yep.
ship, they still had to give the coordinates, but it says, yes, here's the data you're looking for. Hey, we found a pattern, or oh yeah, that would go X, Y, and Z, and you want to talk to this person. It did the search and the setup for them, and they just say, okay, yeah, pledge in a line and go on. But there's still like a human or a humanoid or an interaction. It is. And yes, you're all right. I mean, my own son who's going to be starting high school in the fall. I mean, my
Congrats.
thing, I've gone into it, but that's his generation. My niece, as I was saying, who's just born, that's going to be her world. I mean, she's an early, and my son says an early Gen Beta. So that's what for
Oh my
her.
gosh. Oh
We're
my,
talking
yeah.
about AI now. By the time she's in kindergarten, she'll be like, "Well, yeah, I do this all the time." Well, Gemini, I know this. Oh, Loper, oh yeah, I
I
know
know.
this.
Yeah. How old is she going to be when she starts writing prompts for you? Is my question. When
Exactly.
when is when is her prompt engineering going to pass you? I think it's like age 7 or age 8. It's going to be, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Well, and then
How is
same
this
thing,
ever
like,
going
on
to
my
ramp? Yeah.
other niece who's gonna be 3 this year, it's like, what is CC gonna be doing at this point too? Meanwhile,
Yeah.
my oldest nephew, he's an IC technology nurse. I mean, he's got more medical training and stuff than I ever did in my life, and he had to go through the old system too, and
Yeah.
he's what? He'll be 29 this year, so yeah.
No, I mean, and it's kind of interesting even just think about that full gamut and how, you know, we're talking lens of technology and how they're going to interact with technology. But I just think the transition from, as we like to think about that professional transition to adulthood, which really lasts, in my mind, call it middle of high school, end of high school, up until your first job. And there's a lot of different pathways there. But that professional transition will continue to change. And I think the opportunities, and one piece that was motivating for us in starting Loper, we do not think four-year college is going away.
Oh, no.
There will continued closures. There's going to be industry consolidation, probably a whole nother topic for a whole nother podcast. Feels like you had a headline every week earlier this week, Villanova acquiring Rosemont College in Philly. But it's not that college goes away. It's that alternatives will continue to become more viable and more accessible for students. And I think that's going to further accelerate as we look at what are the career options out there. And those
Mhm.
continuing to change as technology accelerates. And again, Loper can't future proof itself right now. No resource can. I won't. If I get in the predictions game, it's probably a bad game for me to be in, to say the least. But we want to be able to sit there really agnostic of what are the educational providers out there and start to focus more on outcomes and focus more on fit. And that's where we constantly see value for sitting in the middle and how can we guide students through that professional transition and just capture those interests in who they are as a person to reflect what are the pathways out there that are viable for them, that are offering economic mobility. And I know I'm starting to really move away and talk, at a higher, more abstract level from what the mobile app is itself, but that's how we see the future of the product. And that's really how we see us trying to continue to facilitate this healthy introspection search process for students because, it's not, unfortunately, it's not enough to just go to college. You show up on
Yeah.
campus and the highest default rate for student loans is in that debt cohort of $0 to, I think it's 10 to 20K, because so often those are your dropout students after a semester, after a year, who've taken out loans but don't have the end credential to pay them back. So there's
Right,
just,
yeah,
it's such a
and
complicated process.
yeah, and I mean, and there used to be the statistic used to be about 21% of students drop out of college, even in community colleges, by spring of their
Yeah.
freshman year, and now it's gone up to 27%. But I'm like, if you think about, yeah, that's a 6% jump, but this is also a number that's been slowly going up. I think since the early 1970s, or at least when you saw a transition, especially in the early 80s, when a lot of stuff was not paid for colleges and too, because a lot of people say, well, a lot of people didn't go to college in the years even though they could afford it. It's like it wasn't about affording it. It was just there was family businesses, there was family setup, so they did that. More people started going to colleges as that kind of slowly went away. But also statistically is also true because all of a sudden they're out on their own and it's great, but they're on their own and maybe those systems no longer. Maybe you had a study group. Maybe you were just used to, hey, I grabbed my coffee, I played a game, an hour of Fortnite, and then I did my homework, and hey, I was ready for the track and field meet on Friday. Well, all of a sudden you're by yourself doing all that, and it's like, well, my system's gone. What do I do?
And again, it's literally like you're voicing over in the background what's happening in our app and what we want to try and grow more of, because that one of those big pieces you lose in that transition from high school, and again, I'll stick with college, but college, and I really say probably any post-secondary path, is that structure that's there. And asking, like, that's literally a prompt in our app around study groups. Like, hey, do you like study groups? Because as we see Loper continuing to grow, is then, hey, you match with the school, looking at study groups, we have interest. Let's talk about, what that looks like. What's the format for an individual major? Are you having access to, I can't believe I'm blanking on this, but like access to a TA into study groups and what that setup looks like for you. And as we continue to grow, we want to be able to highlight, what are the student clubs on campus that are building that community,
Yeah.
building that structure
That, and
for
that's
you.
a lot of thing people miss. They're really surprised club. I know when my younger brother went to that too. He was shocked about any clubs. I mean, he went to the same high school as I did, and granted, it was several years apart, and there were different groups. But he was surprised it was available. Even when I went to college, I was surprised some of the groups that were available. I mean, there was even a comic readers club, and I'd been reading back in the books from then about 4 years. It was cool for us all to get together and talk about the current runs, or talk about classic runs, or some of us that went to conventions, and that was not available in high school or anything else. I mean, we were that quiet. Now, granted, it's hard to believe. I mean, I finished high school in '96, mind you, 1996, but now there's much more common of that now too. And there's a lot of things. I mean, right here you have a Discord connected to that. I mean, I'm part of a couple of Discords myself. It's nice to have that kind of community reach where you're not really on the big
Definitely.
social media platform, but you can kind of stay into that group area.
Yeah, it's the niche communities, and I think like when I think on my own college experience, niche communities really defined it. And what I think for that student entering college, where sure it's no issue if you can find those niche communities in college. You don't have to know about any of them that are there before. But if you're entering the process and you get that almost like light bulb moment, and we've had some of our users, current high school students, tell us this, where it's like, I didn't even know this existed in college. And then all of a sudden, you're entering this huge transition period, huge time of change with a little bit more excitement and something that's a little bit centering for you. And you're able to say, oh, yeah, I didn't. And I've had students say, I'll use comics as an example. Like, I didn't know that I could think about one of my interests like comics
Mhm.
guiding my college search process, or even being a factor. Maybe guide is slightly too big of a word there, but that matters because you find that niche community and you find a sense of belonging on campus. I mean, every single college's marketing materials talks about community and sense of belonging, but it's really, really hard to message that when it's at a general level. And that's where, again, with our product and where we want to help push this process towards, is being able to bring transparency to those opportunities at the forefront.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a very area too, and actually, like I said, I'm showing here for our live stream. People like if you want to talk to him, he's at Sam at
Reach
getloper.com. Get
Yeah,
up there.
not a complicated email. Just throw the first name out on front. That's the beauty of starting a company. You get the first name. You get to choose your email address. It's like maybe the one big perk.
I keep joking about that as I've gone through my school districts for the emails. They kept going from complicated to less complicated. I remember my most confident. I love this. I was there for 5 years. I was a 10-year teacher there too. Was when I was at Meridian 223. But my email was rread@mail.meridian223.org. And it was then we were all on the screens and everything. And I was like, wow, it's like now you're at this. It's like 5 letters.org. And I
Yeah,
was just like,
it's
we went from like very complicated to watch. As I said, as I joke, as I moved from the school districts, it just got shorter and shorter and shorter.
it's funny. It's funny. Yeah, there's yeah, I think times change. And don't worry. In 5 years, all of a sudden, it's going to be in vogue to have Sam78362 at getloper.com, and that's going to be my fun email address, so no
We'll
one
be
can find me.
we'll be at 3-step verification now. First, you'll get that, then the text, then it'll be like 3-step, and I'll put your eyes there, and I'll put your fingerprint. We're
It's
gonna
funny you bring that up.
bring back
Our
the future for
CTO,
you.
I can hear our CTO in my ear right now telling people that the login process on Loper is as easy as it gets. 2FA, you don't have to remember any passwords. It's going to be text or emailed you a one-time code. If you forget, you can log back and go through that process, because like that, it's a good example of just tech getting out of control. I got 3 different 2FA apps on my phone. Like why can't I just use one app? But every single site, it seems like it's like, oh, you got Duo Mobile on this side, I can use a Google Authenticator on another. So for anyone who's concerned, no passwords to remember on Loper. We promise.
Everybody's like, "Oh, this episode is almost like a great marketing piece here." I was like, "What happened?" I'm like, "Well, hello, marketing teacher." No.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Oh no, it's been really great. So, and what are and like to say, Sam, like we've been doing great little timing. We're going to the area too because, like I said, we got some appointments. Plus, we had some glitches trying to get this going on.
Yeah.
Those who are listening on the audio version of the podcast here is yeah, we had some audio, some internet, my end mostly. It's not Sam's fault, my fault. But yeah, still, it's like whatever. But what are some other things people can look for? What's coming up for Loper and everything, and where are you hoping to go with this, especially as we head into the into the, as they say, into the different little areas and stuff in here in 2026, 2027, like I said, because it's hard to believe if I think about it. I mean, like I said, my oldest nieces are going to be done with college, graduating or in graduating school here. But, and if I think about it, in 4 years, my son is going to be looking at stuff. I mean, he's most likely going to go community college first, but 4 years. And now I'm like, whoa, that's not as far away as it used to be.
No, it is definitely not. And I'll stay a little more near term pause, and then can start to talk about what that big future vision for Loper is. I'd say there's 3 areas that I would highlight in the near term. One, we've already started to break through, which is bringing non-4-year colleges onto the app. That vision, and we talked about it up front. It's high school to what's next. And up until the start of 2025, it was pretty much all 4-year colleges with profiles on the app. And where we're starting to break through, we've actually brought on, you know, I'll shout a few of them out, but what we think are just really amazing opportunities for students after high school. One is called Lead for America, which is an AmeriCorps program, civic service-based gap year program. And they're actually connecting students to, I think they have about 20 different local sites where,
Mm.
you're connected, you're actually working for local government. And what's fun about this is they piloted their initial high school cohort last year. Actually used Loper as an advertising channel for them to great success. I love to be working with them again. And they have students who will go back to four-year college after that, and then others who they're making entry-level salary and then get promoted, and hey, this is what they want to stick with. And for plenty of different reasons, those students are choosing not to go back or not immediately go back to four-year college. So bringing more of those providers to broaden that landscape beyond four-year college is huge. I'd say for anyone listening, especially if you're on the high school counseling side, let us know where your students are going and having success outside of four-year college. Because I mean, if you think it's tough to find four-year colleges, go look outside of that, and it is like the Wild West out there. You can't find
Mm.
information. If you have a career in mind, it's hard to figure out where's an apprenticeship. So there's a couple markets that we're targeting. One of those in Indianapolis, bringing on an HVAC company who has apprenticeships, who I think start at like $21 an hour pay out of high school. So bring more of those opportunities on is a big push for us. I wish I could have a number for how many of these we're going to have on the platform. I'd like to hit 75 to 100 by the end of the year, really high quality programs. That for us is one of those, we want to be the trusted platform where if you learn about something on Loper, whether it's a college or otherwise, it has that stamp of approval. And you as a consumer, like, this is a viable opportunity for me, and not just something that is more of a marketing ploy than a viable pathway for students. So that's one big area. The second area for us, maybe a little bit more topical around this with college application season. Great. It's like senior year, application decisions are right now, and right around the corner for your juniors, college application season is coming up. So we released a beta of this on the app last year, and the next month and a half, I think we're going to have an upgraded version on the app, which is we call it our application center and our personalized plan. So that one-stop shop. Start with Loper, introspection on your interests, build out a personalized college list. Great. Now it's time to apply. Dates, deadlines, resources to help you with your essays. We can actually help our high schoolers out there who may not always have the foresight around, hey, a due date's on December 31st. Let's not start on December 29th. There's going to be,
Right.
let's sequence this out. So making that really easy, and then bring that visibility to parents as well, because parents are a key stakeholder who I would say have been underserved on Loper to date. And I'd say are underserved in the college process as a whole. Being able to have that personalized plan that it's not just a student looking at, but it's a parent looking at it as well. And the number of parents I've spoken to who are not, um, you know, helicopter parents, to use that terminology, don't at all fall into that bucket, but
Mm.
just want to be supportive. And it can cause a lot of tension in the house where it's dinner table conversation. Well, Ryan, where are you? Where are you on your college applications? That's the quickest way to get if you're a teenage boy like I was, it's the quickest way to get me to not talk to my parents for the next 12
Yeah.
hours.
My
So,
that's
yeah.
yeah, I know that feeling.
And,
I
and
mean,
so that,
my parents were very supportive of all of them, but still, it's like,
yeah,
yeah, when you'd have relatives bring that up, you're like, "Well, I'm here. Well, this is happening." It is a conversation.
it's a conversation, and having that in one place, like there's a lot that we can do. I think we had a successful pilot of it last year, but some feedback from our users, and then some layers that we want to add on around supplemental essays. You brought up scholarships earlier, but formatting those in a personalized plan. So having Loper again be that guide for students there. And then the last piece is something that is a little bit on the app, a little bit off the app. We actually have a web-based portal right now. Eventually, we do see more content coming out of the web, but premium guides, and we're starting with a subset of schools. But
Mm.
it's so hard to research the authentic college experience an individual campus. That's one area that I hear from students. That can be, what's the social life actually like on campus? What's the best dorm? What's the go-to place to eat? What's the classic, campus restaurant that's been there since 1943? Like, those are all those things that make an individual college or university feel one of one. Really hard to find that. So we're actually surveying students. Um, there's a whole process that I won't dive into on the background on our side, but building out these like 15-page guides that then we're going to be able to layer on and personalize the content that's showed on those based on individual student interest. That type of, I'm saying premium content here, it's still a free app, but that's how we really visualize it, as leveling up what's there for an individual school. Because I think we're a great landing place and launching point, excuse me, for starting your college search. We want to bring in more content where a student doesn't feel like they hit that point that they need to reach Loper. And to use Northern as an example, as your alma mater, we don't want to have someone learn about Northern, learn about a program there, learn about those clubs on campus, and then be like, oh man, I'm really excited, but now I need to go spend 20 minutes, and 20 minutes probably means 2 hours on Google trying to dig in and find something. We want to
Mhm.
put for them in one place to kind of go through those. Again, you get the application center, premium guides, and then those non-4-year pathways coming on the app. I'd say in the next 3 to 6 months are where we're really excited.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point too, because like I said, campuses change, businesses leave, things go down too. I mean, I remember when I got the Northern, and like I said, my parents were alum, and I grew up in the area, but there were a lot of places once I was old enough to say, "Oh, I can go to," they weren't around anymore. And then it was like, "Well, where do
Yeah,
I go here?" And we had to. I mean, now it's like it's amazing. I mean, like I said, I mean, DeKalb, Sycamore, and everything else, but it does get to that point because there are some things. I know my own sister-in-law, because she went to U of I. She was talking about this one place she took her daughters for, like, "Oh, this is the area, this is the area." And then there's a couple that aren't there anymore. And they're like, oh man,
yeah.
all those years we had there, well, what's the place that replaces it? Well, that's a good question. Now there's this place, but that
It's
is
almost this tribal knowledge of alumni that's there that's so rich. And it's like we want to pull out that tribal knowledge and make it publicly accessible because for as good as these foundational models are, um, there's billions of parameters when you're talking about, and apologies if I'm going too deep on the AI side here, but there's billions of parameters if you enter a prompt in ChatGPT. There's no way for these foundational models to get into the minutia that makes the college
Mhm.
experience so special, and that's what we want to spotlight. Because coming back to the original uh, topic on this podcast, telling stories, communicating those stories out, that's what can really illuminate what a pathway looks like for a student and get them excited. And we want to be the platform that thrives in the minutia.
And I think that's a great thing. It's a very good niche. It's a good thing. It's definitely wanted. It's definitely needed by it as times go on and times change. So I think it's a really good thing. So yeah, you guys want to think about that? Yeah, definitely go over to get Loper here and do a thing. If not, talk to Sam right there. Is if I said Sam, I think it's also be in the show notes here on the audio version and everything else too. So no, I think it's really a thing. Really excited. I definitely want to talk about bringing it with also students in the fall too, in similar areas too. So like I said, I'll pass that along to my guidance counselors to see
Yeah,
what
and
they
I'd
think.
say we're always we're Chicago based, so if it's local, we're
Mhm.
always happy to
Go
try and come to
Chi-Town.
campus. Yeah, go Chi-Town. We're always happy to come to campus, and then for anyone listening who's not in the Chicago area, we do travel quite a bit, but also we're always available virtually because I think some of the most excitement we have is when we get to share the app with students directly. But it's also the single best way for us to improve the app, and that's why I wanted to really emphasize this point.
Mhm.
Loper will not get better if it's just our team of 6 sitting in an office talking about what we think high school students want. The only way the app is going to get better is if we sit there, we watch our users, we see them interact on the product, we see all the things that we think are intuitive, but it turns out aren't intuitive at all. And then we talk to them and try to understand what else are they looking for, what didn't make sense, what's confusing. That's how we make a better product. And I think it's helpful advice for any industry, no matter the role. Is like talk to your users, talk to your users. And so big plug on if anyone would like to have us present, we're going to just ask if we can collect some feedback afterwards.
I mean, that is a mic drop moment if I never heard one right there. So, Sam, this has been a great job. Thanks so much for being on the podcast tonight.
Amazing, Ryan. Thank you so much for having us. Really fun time.
No problem. And everybody else, like I said, check out a good getloper.com there. It'll also be on the show notes here. Those who joined us live stream, thank you for watching. Well, we had 12 viewers tonight. Boy, amazing when we when we have a little late start. Maybe I should start the podcast later than usual. Maybe I
I,
should.
I think that's the key. I think we might have unlocked something here, Ryan.
I joked this with my friend Zach. It's like, when we have a pre-record one, we throw it on there, though it's a live thing. We seem to get more viewers than when we actually do.
Here we go. That's the key.
Uh, welcome to the world of live streaming, everybody. All right. On that note, everybody, thank you for joining us today on the Pixel Classroom podcast, and we will talk to everybody soon.